My name is Sam Motton, and with me is Jason Book, writer and artist for meandhimcomic.tumblr.com. Hey, Jason.
Hey Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Ready to talk about some Superman?
You got it.
We are still going forward on the Superman ongoing series, even though we're not really sure what we're in for with issues these days. We are going to talk about issue 46 of Superman. This is written by Gene Yang with art by Howard Porter. And now we're basically like back up into the same timeline as Action Comics, Superman, Wonder Woman. Like this is just after those last issues. But we've got Condessa and Jimmy. They're looking, trying to find Superman because Superman is underground at the 1001 house doing this myth brawling with the myths that are recreating their stories. If that seems weird, you can check out our previous video and we tried to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
But what'd you make of this issue now going forward, 46?
Well, it's a little better just because there's some more plot development going on, but it's still, until near the end, doesn't feel like a Superman comic to me. It's kind of like they threw a bunch of ideas at the wall and went, well, okay, well, we haven't done this before. Let's let him try this, you know? Like, I'm curious to see what happens next in a good way. That's the best part about the issue. But yeah, the art was decent. It's just, it doesn't feel like a great Superman story. And maybe with what happens at the end, we're going to get back to telling some better Superman stories.
Yeah, I agree with you. It has a feel of more of it'll be like one of these weird things, like, did that really happen in a Superman story?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have a feel of like, oh, this is going to age well
No,
or anything.
no.
I agree, though, that the art is pretty decent. I enjoyed some of the art from Howard Porter. And the one thing that I liked about it was, like, the last issue I said, I have no idea how this connects into the themes or the plot points or the characters from the Hoarder Root story. This one at least started to try to connect it, so we at least had them talking about, like, oh, Hoarder Root knew that you were at the Myth Brawler stuff. Hoarder Root is maybe waiting for Superman to regenerate some of his powers.
Right.
And so we're at least getting some connections, which helps me a little bit have some hope for the future. So that's something. We've got Condessa and Jimmy. So Jimmy got some scenes here. He had a little flashback to his earlier days with Clark. He had some banter with Condessa. And so this is definitely going to be some spoilers. So if you don't want to know, you can pause or stop here. But as soon as you see Jimmy getting some attention, it might be a red flag because something bad's going to happen to Jimmy. So what we get later on in the issue is Yuri. So Superman does some detective work, goes back to Yuri. He thinks Yuri was behind, I think it was Apolika or Apolika, whoever that was, character that I never really understood. Yuri was maybe behind it. Yuri explains some of, like, Hoarder Root's plot and says Hoarder Root has this bigger plan in mind. And then part of this plan maybe involves cloning. So they had sucked 80% of Superman's power, which I guess is the first time that we get a clear, like, numerical value to how depowered Superman has been for several months.
Right.
And they use that 80% power to make a sand clone of Superman who is like an 80% clone.
Right.
Okay, so first of all, what do you think about the sand clone of Superman?
Honestly, I haven't read it since the day it came out. I kind of forgot about that part. So obviously it didn't leave a huge lasting effect on me. I mean, like, if it was something in a different issue used in a better way, and especially with what happens to Jimmy after, then I'm all for it. But in this, it kind of feels like tacked on to kind of lackluster stuff. So we'll see what happens after.
Yeah, so it reminded me of, I think it was Action Comics one-shot for Future's End last year.
Okay.
And they did like a one-shot story about Clark Kent going to the desert to kind of have some contemplation. And he sort of comes to a sand Superman that kind of teaches him a moral lesson. And it was sort of like a poetic story.
Interesting.
And that one was kind of nice. This sand Superman is like totally different. It's just this, like, you know, they're trying to conjure up Superman using sand with his powers.
It sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's actually going to come up again in the next issue, is the sense that I got, that these sand clones are going to matter.
And then what, Superman's going to inhale the sand and get his powers back?
That's maybe.
Oh, I hope that's not how it happens.
I'm back to 100%. No, but then what happens here is Superman fights the sand clone for a little while, and then the sand clone uses his 80% I-beams and hits Jimmy right in the gut.
Yeah.
Because Jimmy and Condessa, like, come into the room because they were following Superman. and it looks like Jimmy dies. So I don't know like what you made of that, if you think he's dead, and how you felt about that.
Well, first of all, Jimmy Olsen's been around for a long time. The guy had his own comic, for God's sakes, even at one point. He deserves to go out in a better story than this one, if this is what happened. So
Yeah.
I'm really thinking that he's not going to die. It might be one of those things that happens to Clark that says, wait, even though you're depowered and you're trying to escape being Superman, you can't escape who you are, and people are going to be in danger because they know who you are. So hopefully something's going to come of it, and Jimmy deserves to die if he actually does, as far as a comic character can actually die, in a better story than this.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if he is actually dead, then I feel bad because in issue 40 or 39, when like Jimmy learned Superman's secret, and I thought they were going to maybe have like a new, deeper friendship because
Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah.
is the one that knows. If he's dead here now, they never really took advantage of that opportunity.
Totally.
They never, to me, really achieved anything by having Jimmy be on the inside of that secret.
Yeah, I'm with
So
you.
that would be sad.
Yeah.
There were a couple glimpses of good stuff in here from the writing. There was Scheherazade, who was like helping Superman recoup after his most recent fight, but she like tells this story about Superman, about how Superman was maybe worried that like people didn't love him because he was good; they just loved him because he was strong, and that's part of
Right.
why people turned against him. So I thought that was getting into some like kind of some real debates that people have about Superman.
Yeah, and that's kind of cool too. I don't mind that stuff. Once again, it would just be better if it was happening. It's funny, like a lot of this stuff could have worked if it was like done in Metropolis with the good supporting cast being part of it that we know and love, and with Superman like kind of like going into some weird fight club in Metropolis and like a weird part of town, like remember Hobbs Bay and all this stuff they used to talk about, like do something
Yeah.
like that, you know?
Yeah. Here they've put it in Oakland and then San Francisco,
Yeah,
but I
it's
feel like they
weird.
haven't. It hasn't really been important that it was Oakland or San Francisco, at least for my reading of it.
I think honestly, Gene Yang might be from there, so maybe he thought it was cool to put in a lot of stuff that actually is maybe, you know, from his first of all his heritage, and maybe some stuff that he grew up around too.
But if you're going to do that, I think you have to just make it part of the story or make
Yeah.
it matter in some way.
Yeah, because it's kind of like a good Spider-Man story or a good Batman story. We don't just like these stories because of the main characters. We like them because of the supporting cast. If there's no Commissioner Gordon or Lois Lane or Aunt May, the stories aren't as good, you know. So like,
Yeah.
I still say there were moments in that John's run, getting off topic for a minute, that were really great to see the supporting cast in there because people like seeing that. So hopefully we get back to some of that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious about the next issue. If they continue to actually tie some things back, that would be nice.
Yeah.
They did have so Superman a couple issues ago. Superman had that video where he said like, if you come after my friends, you're gonna have to answer to me, that kind of thing. And they brought that back up at the end. So Horder Root says like, I've hurt your friend now, and you said you would like return it tenfold upon anybody that hurt your friends. So come and get me.
Yeah.
So things are possibly tying together. It's just been a really weird way to get to those tying it up.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it, and it's too bad that they didn't kind of tie Lex into all this because, to me, I mean, it could have been aping Marvel a bit, but it would have been really cool if Superman got his powers taken away by Lex. Lex had some of the Superman powers, and Superman's got to get him back. That's like so much simpler, but yet a lot more interesting, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, little bit of something here, still a bit crazy. We'll see where it goes next. And it's just like we said last time, it's one of those things where I am looking forward to the next issue.
Just to see
but
what
it's just
happens.
because yeah, I'm just trying to see what is Gene Yang's like master plan here.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, for sure. Well,
So-
we'll look forward to the next one.
Okay, sounds great.